Welcome to the Pindown, your Detroit Pistons podcast. I'm your host, Wes Davenport from Motor City Hoops and Detroit Bad Boys.
And I'm Blake Silverman, writer for Detroit Bad Boys, covering everything Pistons, and news writer for Sports Illustrated.
And guys, we got a special treat. We've got the Pistons Twitter, Pistons anywhere you want to go, basically just draft expert, Motor City Hoops, Bryce Simon. I mean, it's probably easier at this point to tell people where they can't find you. So I kind of want to just let you drop a line to everything you've got going on. I mean, obviously we got the Substack, you got Game Theory, you're on every podcast, including this one. Just take a second, tell everyone where you're at.
Yeah, appreciate it. So at Motor City Hoops on Twitter, on Blue Sky, the Substack is probably the best thing going right now in terms of, especially for this podcast, a lot of the names we'll talk about. I've done shorter, for me, video breakdowns. I think they're all right around 10 minutes or even less. There's also some off-season video breakdowns over there. And then, of course, Game Theory. One thing I want to shout out on Game Theory is we're doing off-season previews for all 30 teams in the NBA. The Detroit one has already dropped. So whether Apple, Spotify, whatever, if you're on YouTube especially, you can go click on the videos tab and you'll have to scroll. Well, actually, there's a playlist tab. Go click on the playlist and then it'll be easier to find the Pistons one. It's 40 minutes or so of me and Sam strictly talking Detroit Pistons off-season, outlining a lot of stuff you guys have probably been talking about as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Bryce, for joining us. Happy to talk to you again. One thing I wanted to ask you out of the gate, as a draft guy who's now covering the league at large, I could only think of you when Ben Mathurin dropped 27 points in, what was that, game 3 the other night? So I guess what's it like for you? And just so I can set the stage better, that was one of your guys in that draft class. So I guess what do you think about that performance, and what do you think it's like when one of your guys like that kind of has a moment or just breaks out into a contributing player overall?
Yeah, I mean, it obviously, and I don't even know if I was really into the draft the way I am now for that class. It was still kind of the top 10 thing covering the Pistons, right? And okay, you got to look at Keegan Murray, J.I., Benedict Mathurin, Shaedon Sharpe, and decide who do you like, who do you not. And I fell in love with Benedict Mathurin's game. I think I still said the Pistons should draft Ivy. I just ended up higher on Mathurin than most, and then somehow found myself being the Ben Mathurin defender or whatever. And it is cool. I had other people DM me during the game hey, your guy's blowing up. And I made a joke man, maybe I should go take a victory lap. But the problem is I have too many misses to go along with. And who knows if that's even a make right now. Mathurin has been very inconsistent in these playoffs. He'll have back-to-back 20-point games and then 7 or 8, So it is kind of cool when you feel like you pinpoint something and then it plays out to some extent in the NBA. But as we all know, we all have makes, we all have misses, and it's just part of it. So I just have a lot of fun covering all of it and evaluating all of it.
Was that, I'm thinking back now, was that the first year that you were really deep into the draft? Because we had the Cade year. I'm just remembering back when you and I, you were right after Killian. We had the Cade year where we were kind of having the top 3, top 5 conversation. But then with J.I.'s draft, I think you were doing big time breakdowns, maybe out to 15, and then it's now spiraled to where you're at now, where you've got how many people on a draft board that you've got on your computer?
So I have it pulled up right here. I have 86 names for 2025, and then if I scroll to the right, what is there? 25 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What's 7 times 25? 175. So I have 175 more names that either, I just didn't feel needed ranked or are going to be in a future class or something like that. I'm looking in my Google Drive. I do have quite a few write-ups for that draft class, though. And it wasn't just the top guys. So, I have a Dyson Daniels write-up here, Jaden Hardy, Jalen Duren, Keegan Murray, Mark Williams, Tari Eason, Ty Washington. So this was probably the first year I expanded beyond only exclusively names that the Pistons could have drafted. I kind of want to click on the Dyson Daniels one now and see if ooh.
Yeah, did you call this? Because that would be the real victory lap if you called that defense. I also want to know if there's any of that G League All-Star game video in that breakdown, in that write-up.
Okay, so this isn't a great Daniels one. My notes in general are questioning some of the just foundational defensive stuff, probably more than what I should. I will say I have like in big bold at the bottom, definitely uses his length to be disruptive. This is extremely real in all uppercase letters. So I at least got that part of it right. So what film were you saying? For who?
For that, you remember that like G League they made an appearance of like
yeah.
like a
Yeah,
showcase team in the All-Star weekend, and
Yeah.
like Daniels didn't look all that great, if I'm
I remember
remembering
that.
right.
Yes. No, I actually have it all labeled here who I watched him play, and that was not one of them. So
Bar.
I
Well,
actually went
so
to
all this is the same. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna mention I went to a G League Ignite game when they were in Detroit to play the Crews. I think that might have been the only time that the G League Ignite came to Detroit, but I think they played the Crews like at the showcase and whatever. But that team was like, I kind of went because of Jaden Hardy. Like that was the name that I mostly knew heading into it. But that was like first year Scoot on G League Ignite. So I was like,
17-year-old Scoot,
yeah,
right?
I was like, who is this kid? And then like Dyson Daniels was on that team, and Jaden Hardy didn't have a great game. I mean, a lot going on. You can't have a great game every night, but like I came away most impressed with Dyson Daniels and Scoot. Not trying to like pat myself on the back. I think everyone in the arena did. That was at that game, but I kind of miss the Ignite. I know I get why it didn't work out and it was a mess in the last year, but some good players came out of it.
They did. My thing was it did eliminate one more league that you tried to evaluate and compare players against, right? Like I always tell people that's the hardest thing with the NBA draft is not only do you have 18-year-olds, 23-year-olds, different levels of college basketball, different roles, but then you have to go evaluate, I don't know, the Chinese basketball league and then the NBL and, the European leagues. And I've been in this for a couple of years now. I'm not even fully grasping which ones are the best leagues and the worst leagues and the level of competition and all of that. It's like sometimes I even have to go to Sam or other people and be like, okay, give me some context. The CBL is equivalent to what level of basketball, or whatever. You start to get a handle on it and you can tell a little bit, but that's what makes this so hard is so many guys coming from different things, different leagues, different contexts, and then you got to try to compare them to each other.
Yeah, especially when you think about the Thompson twins coming out of overtime.
Oh my gosh, that was a nightmare.
And there's still like guys that are coming that were playing there with the Thompsons that are like going through the collegiate ranks and stuff. So it's like this was actually a good player that they were playing against.
I mean, that was Alex Sarr was an OTE guy, and then went to the NBL. If I remember right, Rob Dillingham was an OTE guy also. And I mean, listen, I know there's a lot. I know Troy Weaver has the quote or whatever about Sarr, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, talent." Sounds like that's like if you can evaluate that type of basketball, good for you. I struggled with it because it was absolutely ridiculous stuff. I struggled with the context of that basketball. Yes, you could see the athleticism. Like I actually think it did them a disservice because I don't think it showed off their defense into what they've become. Like maybe I'm mistaken. I don't remember people predicting all NBA defensive stuff for these two in year one and year two. And that's essential. I mean, Amin was, and Sarr would have been if he wouldn't have gotten blood clots. So I don't know that it showcased their talents the way a different context would have. So anyway, it's very nuanced, this NBA draft scouting stuff. And that's why one thing I always preach is listen to everybody's views. And I will tell this real quick, guys, because it'll come into play as we talk through these players. I have talked to scouts who have had a player in the lottery, and then I've talked to scouts on a different team that have had a player outside the first round. Same player, same year. We may talk about one of those players on this episode. And so if NBA scouts can be that far apart on players, we in the public space can be as well while still getting along.
All right, well, let's get to it. We got a good list here going, and actually, Derek Brooks, he jumped the gun with this. So he says, "What's up, guys? Bryce and crew."
Derek,
he's
pro can't be friends anymore.
Over right now. Can you please tell me who actually you'd envision being the better fit for the Pistons? So, Derek here, he's talking about Maxime Reynaud and Ryan Kalkbrenner. Let's just do those two guys first. All right, so let's do a deep dive first on your guy, the guy Derek doesn't quite agree with. What's the pitch on Maxime right now? The big out of Stanford.
Derek, I'm just joking. I appreciate all of your support across all platforms and everything like that. I completely understand it. So Maxime Renault is a big out of Stanford. He's 22 years old, just turned 22 in April, obviously from France. Maxime Renault. It's not, Raynaud. 4-year guy at Stanford, put up big numbers. The main pitch here, guys, is a stretch big, right? Like that is the idea here. And my pitch with Renault, like if I really wanted to see the highest of upside, it's not even just stretch big, it's a skilled big. It's a guy, and I do this, I have a video breakdown actually on both of these players over on the Substack. You guys can go check it out for absolutely free. Never get charged over there on the Motor City Hoops Substack. What I showed was he actually moves off the ball well. Like he understands relocation and spacing. He's a guy you can have go stand in the corner. I think when we say stretch big, a lot of times we think, oh, he's just a pick and pop guy. I don't think that's Renault. I think Renault can go stand in the corner, relocate, cut, offensive rebound, all of those things. I love the offense. I think the offense is real. I think it's legit. He's 7'1". I give in shoes numbers. I don't know how you guys feel about this. I don't know I just took what their height without shoes at the combine was and averaged or added an inch or so. Because
just get a uniform pair of shoes and make all players wear it for the measurements at the combine. You don't have to play with it.
But the difference isn't that big though, and no one's playing barefoot. Just who cares? It's a half an inch.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
They cheat,
I'm with you,
guys.
Bryce.
They cheat every step. Or every test. Reed Shepherd cheated the standing reach so his vertical jump would be better. Like, if I don't care. Like, but so I say in shoes. So if you guys are out there like, oh, he actually without shoes, it was 6'11 and 3/4. I say 7'1 because I think 7'1 in shoes. He did have a neutral wingspan, which is something, but he has legit size. But finesse, skilled, big that I really, really like. He has a little bit of off the bounce potential. And then defensively, so let me give you a few numbers. 49% on unguarded catch and shoot threes last year at Stanford. So when you look at just the 3-point percentages, I'll just give you his career total. 320 attempts, 35%. Maybe not like wow you, but almost 50% on unguarded, which is pretty much all you're going to want him to shoot anyway. He was 45% on what I call touch attempts. That's Synergy's floater and hook numbers. And so can he be a short roll threat? And then 60% on layups in the half court. That takes away dunks. So I think the offense is there. I think where a lot of people's question marks come is defensively, right? Like he's not a huge like defensive disruptor, rim protector, block guy, whatever. I think he's better than some people give him credit for. I think he moves okay, guys. And I think he really understands positioning and how to use his length.
So that was the question I really wanted to ask you with right now, because the few games that I looked at, his movement actually really kind of popped off the screen for how big he is. Like it seems like he's a fluid athlete, even if he's not the most athletic guy, if that kind of makes sense to say. Like, not someone that excels at a standing vertical leap, but he can Euro step through the lane off the dribble, which is unusual for the size. So does that really translate over to the defensive side? And on top of that, is this someone that you think one day could attack a closeout, even if a guy's coming and flying at him?
I do. And that's why I'm excited about him. And so that's why I said, I have here in my notes, I think he has some off the bounce potential. Not like he's not going to be a primary guy. I think we had Laz Jackson over on the Pistons Pulse the other day, and he talked about, I gave him some homework to watch Maxime Renault, Chaz Lanier, and Alex Tui. And he was like, I looked at Maxime Renault's usage percentage and was like blown away. And was like, yeah, like this was the dude at Stanford last year. Now that won't be the same thing, but what I said was it could translate to attacking closeouts. Exactly what you're asking there, Wes. So if he pick and pops and then you get a hard closeout, he can attack that. And we're talking about pick 37, maybe higher with Renault. I'm looking at like a backup big. Maybe the ceiling is as a starter, but definitely a backup big. So he's playing against mostly backups of the other team. And so I think he's going to be able to do those things against those type of players. But again, I think where that comes in, I think he understands ball screen coverage, at the point of attack, ball screen coverages, drop, opening his hips to the right person. This is something Jalen Duren struggles with that I harp all the time. And again, his hand activity on the defensive end.
Yeah, I think where I was intrigued with him is like I just think when you're trying to evaluate bigs, it's like how well do they move, and like I like to look at like touch, and there was this one
Sure.
highlight I saw with Reynaud where he drove to the basket and he had like a clear path to the rim, like there was no one in front of him, and he like pulled up for a floater, and I was like, "Why you didn't really need to do that?" But he made it, and I was just like, he's pretty confident in like his touch near the hoop. And like I know the big thing with him is like defense. Do you really want to invest in like a big that you're not certain on that end of the floor? But if we're talking about a guy like late first round, early second round, I think he has the ability to maybe be a backup big, certainly, but maybe grow into a starter. Like he just seems like more versatile and has some like skills that are hard to find amongst bigs, like once when you're looking in like the free agency market or the trade market.
I also think what we've seen with the Pistons, I mean, they obviously do it Jalen Duren and they do it some with Isaiah Stewart. They like giving the ball to their center and allowing him to kind of initiate quote unquote offense with some sort of dribble handoff or throwing backdoor passes or whatever. I think Maxime Renaud can do that in the extent that the Pistons would need from a backup big. And again, I think so if people, what's the biggest concern, right? So like I've given a whole lot of positives here. Why would Cockbrenner be the better option, or where could it go wrong for Renaud? I think he is a finesse skilled big. He doesn't do the quote unquote big guy things. He's not going to be a lob threat and all of that. So if the jumper isn't real, where does the value come offensively? So that skill is going to have to translate. And then on the defensive end, my worry would be he's not athletic enough to be a true switch big, but I don't think he's going to be great at playing true drop all the time because he doesn't have this great vertical pop. So I want to give the other side of the coin as well in terms of if it doesn't work out, it's because the jumper mechanics break down or he can't do it at volume or whatever. And then defensively, he's kind of a tweener in terms of specifically ball screen coverages.
So Dex Hoops here with a good question, and then we'll go to the other side of the coin here with Cockbrenner. But do you have a player comp for Maxime Renaud, which I know is something you love doing, player comps?
Wes is joking. Let's see. I don't have one in my notes, I don't think. So like I think the role and the idea is a little bit Quentin Postish. They're not built the same. Like Post is just like massive and it's a little bit different, but kind of like what Post did for the Warriors. Although I'm hoping Renaud will be better defensively than that. I don't think he's Nas Reed because Nas just has way more off the bounce game and like movement shooting and stuff like that. So it's not quite the same offensive game there. I'm trying to think of like a big that does this with neutral defense. Like a lot of these
Luke
archetypes
Cornett.
are like, yeah, if Luke could shoot it, right? Trying to think.
Yeah, like
Because,
a poor defender defending Miles Turner. Like it's I don't know.
Sure.
It's kind of tough.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like Turner would be interesting in regards to that. Just not the level of defender that Miles Turner is. But like the archetype is tough because the best versions of this archetype are like Miles Turner, Kristaps Porzingis, Chet Holmgren, stuff like that. And he's not that. Like that's not the upside with Renaud, in my opinion.
All right, well, let's take a look at Ryan Cockbrenner then. So again, we'll pull up Derek Brooks here, his comment, but he's saying he's pro Cockbrenner instead of Renaud. So what's the pitch for DB's guy?
Yeah, and so the biggest, I don't want to say disagreement, or me and Derek would be different. Like I think Maxime Renaud is the perfect addition to the Pistons' current center room because he does provide something very different than what they have with the floor spacing and the skill level and all of that. I think Cockbrenner may be the safer bet. Like I feel like Ryan Cockbrenner is going to be an NBA center. And if you put him in as the third center, I think that's a great role for him. definitely the better defender, right? Like if you can just say, hey, Ryan Kalkbrenner, go play drop coverage, right? Like if Detroit, that's what you're going to play, let him play drop coverage, the size, the length, like he's just very, very solid. He's 7'2", 7'6" wingspan. I have him as a backup rim protecting, rim running big. And so like, that's what it is. Like, I think the drop coverage stuff is like, think Brook Lopez, think Ivica Zubac. Now, those are like all defense level defenders. I'm not saying Kalkbrenner is going to be that, but that's the idea on the defensive end. I don't think there's as much versatility with him or anything like that. So that's what you're looking defensively. Offensively, I think he runs the floor really hard. I struggle to get as excited about him on the offensive end, guys. I'm interested to see where you guys will stand. The upside swing with him is that he develops a jump shot, and I know there are some people that believe in that from him.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about just like this draft overall that might not be super interesting for the Pistons is because of this season they had. Like Kalkbrenner is a 23-year-old like college prospect, and I feel like if we were looking at the draft just a year ago, that might have been a non-starter for all of us here just because of where the team was. But like maybe now after you over exceed expectations, you go to the playoffs, you make things interesting against the Knicks, you're trying to make another step. Like maybe you are just looking to play it safe a little bit and get someone that you can put at the end of the rotation or even a third big if Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart are still the only bigs on the roster, depending on what happens with Paul Reed, like someone that you can lean on if there's foul trouble and injury. So like, I get that side of the coin. I mean, I feel like I'm still personally the prospects that are a little more intriguing that they can turn into more just because of this team's timeline. Like I lean that way, which brings me toward like favoring Renault as well. But I also understand, I guess, like the Kalkbrenner pitch as well. Just like you said, like playing it safe a little bit as a safer bet.
Yeah, and I want to be clear because I've had to say this on Vlad Golden, which most of the listeners will probably know from Michigan. I think Vlad Golden has a real good chance of being a third big in the NBA, and that's not a disrespectful thing. I think we learned this year that the third big on a team is actually important, right? Like Paul Reed, how many ever minutes he played in the regular season and postseason were important and a lot of times impactful, but he has some limitations of his own. And that's why, like, if Ryan Kalkbrenner is drafted by the Pistons at 37, I will be perfectly happy as long as Maxime Renault is not on the board. Now, if the Pistons traded up to 27 with the Nets or whichever one it is to draft Ryan Kalkbrenner, I will be less excited about that. Like, I would not do that. He's more of, okay, if he falls to you, great. I would be extremely happy with that. So I don't think he's a bad fit on Detroit. And especially, I'm not as high on, hey, he's definitely going to shoot. He's going to, like, I do have some interesting DHO notes on him. He's really good. Like, if the offensive player curls around him, hitting that, all of that stuff. Obviously, the defense, if they want to go defense, like they want to continue to build out this defensive identity, they should go with Kalkbrenner. Like, if they're not worried about adding a stretch five. And what I've said with that is, I like the idea of proof of concept. You know, we all talk about the stretch five for the Pistons, and it's going to unlock Asar even more and give Cade all of this. Maybe Cade works better with a lob threat. I agree he works good with anybody, but what if he's 99th percentile outcome with a lob threat and 91st percentile with a pick and pop guy, right? Like, I want to see that first. Have we seen him play with a true stretch big at all? Like, I know somebody brought up the Danilo Gallinari and Muscala. Was he even playing in those games?
Kelly
when those guys
Olynyk,
played?
maybe?
Yeah.
Does that count? Does Kelly O count here?
I actually thought that was an interesting move. Like, that was another one that didn't pan out from the Weaver days.
Yeah.
This would be the reason I get excited about Renault for the Pistons is it's a proof of concept using pick 37, a proof of concept that I think we all talk about, but do you want to commit $30 million, $35 million, trade assets to that archetype of player before you've actually seen it? Maybe you do, but I don't hate the idea of drafting it at 37 and then seeing it with the second round pick that's a lighter version of whatever you would eventually commit to long-term. So again, I like Ryan Kalkbrenner as the 37th pick. I don't like that as much if Renault is on the board or if you're trading assets to go get him.
So can I just ask really quickly, like with these two guys, is one more maybe plug and play, like NBA ready than the other? Because like looking at it, they're similar age, right? I mean,
Yeah,
Kalkbrenner's 23, I think Reyno's 22, if I'm remembering right. So like they're kind of in the same boat. They're older prospects, and Reyno, like I can absolutely see the appeal. He's so skilled, he's so big, he moves so well. But it also seems like he maybe needs to work on a little bit more in order to crack a rotation, where maybe you can't say the same for Kalkbrenner, or am I misinterpreting a little bit?
No, I mean, Kalkbrenner is a little bit older. I would say like, I would be okay if Maxime Renault was the Pistons, either one being their third big next season. I think I'm okay with that. We're still talking about a guy that played 4 years of college basketball, that is 22 years old, that has good size. I mean, I guess the argument again would be like defensively, Kalkbrenner is just like ready, and there's a chance Renault just gets destroyed as a rookie on the defensive end. I suppose that's fair. I don't buy into that as much. I don't think he's going to be a positive defender, but I think he's going to be better than what people think because he plays cat and mouse and ball screens. He knows how to open his hips the correct direction. He knows how to use his hands and all of those things. I think he's at least going to be in the right position. So I'm okay Renault being in that third. How many ever minutes Paul Reed played last year? If Maxime Renault was asked to play those minutes next season, I would be more than comfortable with that. And if it was Ryan Kalkbrenner, I'd be more than comfortable with that as well.
Yeah, and let's say the Pistons do take a Renault, and eventually, whether it's an injury or something happens, like he is in the second unit for this team. Like I know last season we see Isaiah Stewart as like the backup five, and he thrived in that role. Like, does Isaiah Stewart being as good of a rim protector and defender that he is, and Renault being able to like space the floor, like that kind of intrigues me, even though I'm not sure I'd really want Isaiah Stewart to not play the five, for example. Like, I feel like it's easier to get away with if you have a Renault.
You talking about those two playing together a little bit?
Yeah.
I would try it. I don't know if it'd work or not, but I would try.
Just if you need to, maybe.
So I don't. The issue defensively is more. I don't love either of them as the off-ball roamer. If that make, I don't know. Maybe Maxime could do that, right? I think Stewart has proven he's almost better at the point of attack, right? Being the ball screen coverage guy and being switchable and those things. I think for that to work, Maxime would have to be really good as an off-the-ball rim protector. I'd have to like go back into the film and see how much of that we had. I think offensively it works, right? Like I think it's fine because, okay, you want Stu to be in the ball screen? That's why, like, Maxime will go stand in the corner on the weak side, and he'll be fine doing that, and then doing whatever he needs to do, off-ball relocation, set a flare screen, go offensive rebound. I think the other guy it's interesting to me is Asar, like, you know, him and Asar playing together in some sort of second unit rotations some way. So I just think he fits this roster really well.
All right, last question before we move on to a different prospect. And I'm going to ask this about another center that we're going to talk about later. But with Kalkbrenner, what is going on with that jump shot? Because it seemed like every now and then he uncorked a three and it didn't look half bad. So, and you mentioned that some people think he's going to be a shooter someday. Some people don't. Like, what's going on with that jumper?
I mean, it is slightly interesting. So he took 150 in his career, 31%. He is a career 71% free throw shooter. So like all of that stuff is slightly intriguing, right? I don't think those numbers show it the way like Renault took over 5 attempts per game last year, guys. Like we talk about being how important volume is, and he did that last season. So I do think it's fair to have more faith in Renault's than Kalkbrenner's, but maybe I just don't believe in Kalkbrenner's enough. Like maybe I'm not giving him enough credit for taking 150 and having a good free throw percentage. So I'm slightly interested, and that is truly the upside. Like the upside is if the jump shot gets there, because we talked about this beforehand. You called him kind of a stiff mover. I think I would agree with that. Like the athletic profile isn't something I love, but the size is real. So just the sheer size, the understanding of positioning, playing with verticality at a very high level and never going for shot fakes, which is something I love from him defensively. If you tell me he shoots it on the other end, he's better than Renault. Like he's a better prospect than Renault, no question. even if he doesn't short roll, score, and operate DHOs as well. The defense, like now you are talking like Brooke Lopez-ish type outcomes for Ryan Cockbrenner. So that's the upside there, and maybe that's more intriguing for some people.
Yeah, I think.
All right, let's go to a name. Oh, sorry, Blake. Go ahead.
Oh no, just quick thing. I think like for me, what it boils down to personally is like Renault just seems like a modern NBA big, and like Kalkbrenner's like he took over some games for Creighton, and I think that's like what a really good basketball team that makes him really like a little bit intriguing. But I'm like, is he one of those like good college players that might be okay in the NBA? So I think it's like they're very similar and like consensus and everything. So I don't know. I just would like to take the swing on the intriguing guy, but I understand both of them.
All right, a name that I was actually very surprised to see in the range here for the Pistons. Now, granted, this is probably a trade-up name, but that just goes to show how disconnected from draft conversation I really was up until we hit the offseason. But Ben Suraf, all right, he was a point guard and playing over in France. He early in the season was supposed to be kind of up near, I think it was near the top 10. Now he's kind of fallen to the mid-20s, maybe even slips even further than that. So what is your scout on the point guard here?
Oh, Ben Suraf, man. This was one of my favorite players starting in the offseason. Like, I still think he creates as much separation from defenders at the point of attack as maybe anybody in the class. Like, Jeremiah Fears is that explosive on-ball guy, but like Suraf is a real all-around creative offensive player, and he can really, really create separation. So I love that about him. It's just like the numbers, the efficiency just didn't play out this year the way people wanted to see. He didn't end up 45% from the field overall, but under 30% from the three-point line. Over 4 assists, but close to 3 turnovers. Now, here's the context, guys. We just talked about 23-year-old and 22-year-old, 5 years and 4 years, respectively, of college basketball in Ryan Cockbrenner and Maxime Renault, guys that were the focal points of their high major offenses. And now we're talking about just turned 19-year-old in April, Ben Suraf, playing in a professional league, right? So context really, really matters in these situations. I've pegged him now as a third guard. If he's your high level, like if he's your fourth guard, that is a very high level fourth guard for a team. My thing with this is like, I just don't know how NBA teams will value that role, right? Like, is a third guard, high level fourth guard something in the early 20s? Maybe for a team, it'd be even earlier than that. Maybe for some teams, it's not. Maybe it is. He's going to end up into the first round. I'm not sure because he's combo guard now, I feel like. I don't think people believe in like the true point guard stuff enough anymore. And then the shooting isn't quite good enough for him to be completely off the ball. Let me give you some of like the synergy numbers. He was almost 40% on catch and shoot threes and 40% on dribble 2-point jumpers. The concerning thing was the 3-point jumper was 12 out of 61 this year. And this was the last time I looked. This may have changed a little bit. 56% at the rim in the half court on 144 attempts. And then it was a positive assist to turnover ratio for the year. So I'm still very intrigued by Suraf. Would be an interesting fit on Detroit. Like, I don't know how that guard room would shake out, guys, but I don't hate adding him to it. I think that probably means you don't bring back all of these free agents that we're talking about.
Yeah, Suraf is like so interesting to me. I actually first learned about him in like the U18 Eurobasket last year.
Yes.
I think I turned on a game to watch Hugo Gonzalez of Spain.
Same game. Yep.
Yeah. And Ben Suraf just like took over, and I was kind of like, who is this kid? And then just became kind of like obsessed with this run that he had. He was scoring he had a 40-point game. I think he like set a record for the tournament, and he's just like a super fun player to watch.
He's from Israel for the listeners. So he was playing with Israel's U18 last summer. Yep.
Yeah. And I'm not like super tapped into like the development European basketball, but like from what I understood, that team was not like meant to go far in this tournament. And he almost like, they didn't win it, but he like took them to where they could have won that. And So I was interested to hear your take because like I started watching some of his games at the start of the season with Ulm. That team is a fun international team to watch, all these prospects over the years. And this year they had Saraf and Noah Singay. So it's like fun to watch two NBA prospects at once. And I know they came over to the States to play, I believe it was the Blazers. For a preseason game. And I mean, nothing like crazy. I think Saraf made like a 3 or 2, but overall, I where I'm most intrigued by him is just his like creativity as a passer, and the shot is just such like a bummer, I guess, because I feel like if that was there, he would be so hot. Like I was one of the people I'd say that had him up in like the lottery after that summer he had.
Same.
So yeah, he's incredible. And also for the listeners as well, like if you haven't watched Ben Saraf yet, he's like a European player. I don't know if Israel's in Europe, but he wears number 77. So you're kind of just like, oh, is that what he's trying to be here with like Luka Doncic? And he makes some like really creative passes too. So yeah, I figured he would be in this range. Like I knew where he was consensusly. I was curious as the why. So that makes total sense. And the competition level is crazy.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like something about him and just how he is like an all-around player. I'm still intrigued by him. I mean, if he was there at 37, I don't think he will be, but like I know I personally would be super intrigued by that, no matter what your roster makeup looks like.
Real quick, just those numbers from the U18s. He averaged 28 points a game on 45, 36, 76. He shot over 8 free throws a game, 5 rebounds, almost 5.5 assists, 4 steals, 2.5 turnovers, leading Israel to a 4th place finish. Like it was truly a big time performance from him. And I realize it's U18s. I get it. It's not this professional league that we're talking about here, but I mean, he played 55 games and 24 minutes a game for Ulm this year in a pro league. And again, shot 45% from the field with that. And you know, there are defensive questions. I think he has real good energy on the defensive end, but like, is he always in the right spot? Is he going to do what the scouting report says? Like, does he take too many chances? Some of those things. So I think that's why he ends up being this really good off the bench player, because it's like, that's kind of what you want off the bench, right? You want this energy giver that changes the energy of the game. I do want to mention here, we've talked about him for 5 minutes or so. He is very left-hand dominant. And again, Michigan people that watch Michigan State, this is a huge knock on Jace Richardson right now in the draft process. Goodness, I'm sorry. Saraf is just as left-hand dominant as Jace Richardson with the way he attacks downhill, with his scoring, and with his passing.
Even with his 1-2 step into his pull-up, it gets him into some really funky mid-range pull-up jumpers, which is hilarious. We should say this. I was realizing this as you were talking about a left-hand dominant guard out of We should separate him from Killian Hayes a little bit.
Dear.
I think because Pistons fans shouldn't be gun-shy about this guy. I don't think they should be at all. The downsides of Killian were not the same necessarily downsides with Saraf. Like you mentioned, he can create advantages pretty well off the dribble. I think that really stood out to me as well. He's not afraid of contact. Like he gets to the rim and he'll throw a shoulder and actually either try to go through or do the little bump off and create a little space that way. Like these are things Killian Hayes was never doing, not even when he was back at home. So like these aren't the same players. Don't be gun shy. I'd trade up for the guy. Like I think if he's sitting there in the 20s, I'd be really intrigued.
I mean, the most important reason that you shouldn't be nervous is they took Killian at 7 and they're taking Saraf at 30.
Well, that as well.
Or even if they traded up for him. So Saraf is, he's in my top 30. Like he is a very strong first round pick for me. And so, yeah, I would be interested. I actually have him rated right next to Maxime Renault. 3 guys we're going to talk about today are all kind of back to back to back. Noah Pinda, spoiler alert, is the other one. So no, like the ability to create. The other thing I'd say is like, we learned that Killian was very much like had to play on the ball to truly be successful. Like the off the ball stuff just didn't look comfortable. I think Saraf has a much better, like he cuts off the ball really well. Doesn't understand 3-point line relocation yet, but he's a young player. I think Saraf can thrive in and off-ball role, right? Like, I don't think you want to play him exclusively off the ball because he can pass and he has creativity with the ball in his hands, but he can thrive a little bit more doing a little bit of both. So I'm like, at 37, it's a home run. Like, take him, figure out the guard, room, whatever, like, you'll be fine. And yeah, I think talent-wise, if I've said I'm okay with this team trading up for certain players as long as it's not a future first-round pick. Like, or like Oklahoma City got a first-round pick. They didn't trade up. They got a first-round pick with 5 seconds last year. I think it was 25 or something like that to draft Dylan Jones. So with 37 in play, I would assume it would take 2 second-round picks to get back up to a range that, that they would want. And again, Brooklyn seems like the most popular name because they have 4 first-round picks and 2 back-to-back here in the late 20s.
Yeah.
Real quick, Blake, question that I had here with Saraf, because this is something I started to notice and I was actually really surprised about. You mentioned him playing off ball a little bit, and it's not that he's a great relocator, because he's not, but it almost seemed like in the couple of clips that I was watching, he moves into space fairly well, just like instinctively, which I don't know how scalable that is, but it was an interesting thing to see. Like, he'd flow down to the dunker spot every now and again when someone's driving from the top, and that's unusual for a guard.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. I think I'm interested in all of that stuff. Like, I think and like I said, he ended up shooting almost 40%. The last time I looked at Synergy, these numbers may have changed. So at the point in the season when this was, I should have put a date. He was at almost 40% on strictly catch and shoot threes. Like, his shooting profile is very weird because the 3-point jumper is not good, but the catch and shoot number is good. The 2-point dribble jumper is right around 40, which isn't quite what you would want from it. But I can't get over the deceleration, the creativity, the ability to create space, snaking, like all of that stuff is just really, really interesting. And so you get that kind of talent at this age and found some success, like real success in a pro league at 18 years old for most of the season, into the first round, top of the second round. I'm jumping all over that. I think that's really fun.
Yeah, and I think he could eventually develop into like I think the shot could grow, and just to go back to that U18 again, like different competition level, but he shot 36% from 3 on almost 7 attempts a game. Like, I don't think he's a bad shooter. I just think like the role, I guess, or just like the limited opportunities he got over the season kind of hurt him a bit. But I think he's just mainly a guy that needs time. And if you are talking about him as a trade up candidate into the back of the first round to get that extra year of team control, like, if you really do believe in a guy, like, I almost trust whoever the decision maker is to like give them that time. I just feel like that goes down a dark path because maybe they get lost somewhere in the organization. They're not getting time in the G League. They're not getting time like in the rotation. And then the next year, is there another move that you make that kind of makes that person the odd man out? So I think it just depends like what the Pistons draft strategy is going to be this year. Like, will they jump for a guy that they believe in but needs more time, or like get someone that's ready to contribute at a quicker fashion?
It's part of the bigger conversation with Trajan. I think we would all agree that Trajan has done a really, really good job. And we feel like we could pinpoint something that they believe in vets, right? Like, Trajan has really prioritized vets that were available. Like, every single vet he brought in since he took over is a player that you can look at their history and was available in regards to playing games. I don't know that we know what Trajan wants to do as a draft selector whenever he has full control, right? Like, people can go back to New Orleans and maybe there's trends there. I don't know how much he had to say in those things. Maybe he did. Maybe we can take things from that. Last year, like, you could look at Ron Holland and say, uber athletic young player. And it's like, okay, well, maybe he would love Ben Suraf. I'm not saying he's that level of athlete, but a young player, right? But it may have just been like, that's who was available at 5. So we will continue to get more data on Trajan as a draft pick person and where he values there over the next couple of years. I think we need more than just one draft of Ron Holland and Bobby Klintman to figure out what he values in regards to that.
All right, Bryce, we got really two names left that we all kind of pre-prepped for the show. And then it looks like we got maybe one or two in the comment section. We'll try to get to all of them. But I want you to pick. Who do you want next? Do you want a wing that's probably not going to be there, almost certainly not going to be there at 37? Or do you want kind of another weird big? Like, where do you want to go next?
Let's get the weird big. Oh, yeah, let's get the weird big. This one's fun.
All right, Hansen Yang. So a giant individual coming out of China, very young, very big, very skilled, but kind of a slow plodding yet fluid big man. What's the scout on Hansen Yang?
Yeah, very massive human being. Again, if you go over the Motor City Hoops Substack, I have a lot of breakdowns on the. I actually haven't done Saraf. I'm hoping to do trade up candidates the week of the draft, but Hansen Yang is recorded. It's scheduled. It will drop sometime next week. Really interesting player where like the biggest intrigue on the offensive end to me is the passing. The passing is really fun. And when you look, he actually has a negative assist to turnover ratio this year. The CBL is just an interesting league. In the video breakdown I do, he has 3 really fun short roll passing reads, and none of them end up in assists. Not a single one, because either the team's spacing is wrong, his teammates miss, they overthink it, whatever. So just don't look at the negative assist to turnover ratio and be like, what are they talking about? He can really pass, guys. I'm interested to see what the shooting ends up being. I have those numbers in the video breakdown, and they're not overly intriguing, but he has some jump shot making this past season. I'll just give you the quick numbers here. CBA, not CBL. 16 points on 60, 29, 68 from the free throw line, 10 rebounds, the 2.8 assists, 1 steal, 2.7 blocks in 33 minutes. That's one thing that does stand out to me. He plays a lot of minutes, and he has both years over there in the Chinese Basketball League. Or association, I guess. And that always stands out to me with bigs. It was one question I had about Donovan Clingan when he was coming out, was like, hey, how many minutes can you play this guy if this is all he's playing in college? So I love the minutes. The big question with Hansen Yang is, can he move defensively? Or is he just literally going to have to stand in the lane, try to avoid 3 seconds, and be disruptive that way? It is a real concern. And again, I show that in the breakdown that I did.
I think one thing you can say about just trying to scout players out of the CBA is, wasn't Hansen Yang the defensive player of the year?
I would have to look.
I think he was. And like, it's just funny to me because like a lot of his questions are on the defensive end, and he like won defensive player of the year in that league. But I think he's another interesting guy that, I mean, I wouldn't want to waste I shouldn't say waste, use a first round pick on him, but I think like if the Pistons are staying put, they're looking to add a big to their bigs room. I think the range they're in, there are going to be a lot of options, and that's what stuck out to me too about Yang when watching his film, is like the passing, and like you said earlier about how the Pistons have been using their bigs and wanting them to make decisions, and having a guy who can pass out of the short roll, I think is like super valuable. And I think he could do that, maybe not as good as some other prospects as well. But yeah, he's like, I feel like one of the more polarizing prospects in this draft class, just because of his size, his skill set, where his questions are, and then like where he spent his pre-draft years.
So I'm doing some fun things on their website, their stats website. So Hansen Yang was one of 2 players to average 2 blocks per game in the CBA this year. And the only other player was Damian Jones, which some listeners may remember, 30-year-old, former Golden State Warrior, right? So like, to me, that's probably where it comes from, because he averaged 2 blocks per game, did Hansen, 2.7. Damian Jones just averaged right at 2. And then Hansen also averaged 10 rebounds a game. I mean, so you're just like talking about bigs who usually win these awards. Yeah. And just the fact, I mean, he has real rim protection in regards to that. Like, he has real size. It changes the decision-making process of guys that are coming into the lane when he's there. It's just, so there's one specific ball screen in the video breakdown I do where he actually gets a recovery block, but it's a big guy that's trying to finish below the rim with a layup. And I just found myself going, an NBA player is putting that on his head. Like an NBA player is, if that's Jalen Duren, that possession is over. If that's a backup big, if that's Thomas Bryant, that possession is over, right? Like, and so like that's where the context matters when you watch. It's just like, okay, does he block this in the NBA, or does this end up being 2 points for the other team? The other thing that really stood out is they actually had a defensive ball screen coverage scheme where it eliminated him from being in the coverage. The ball screen would happen, and you can see him waving over the weak side wing defender to come cut off the drive. And I've seen this not just in the CBA, I've seen it a little bit more overseas, but it's to protect somebody like him from having to even have play drop coverage and play two. They're going to use their other better movers and just let him stay with the roll man.
So like long-term defensively for him, is this, you mentioned like a guy that kind of just sits in the lane and you try to funnel things to, is that really the only way he's probably going to get to block shots? Because, so, you know, it's funny, we're talking about the size of the guy. I actually had to double check his measurements because it was just so hard to tell if he is actually as big as he looks in those clips, or is everyone in this Chinese league just really small? Like I didn't know, because there are a couple of smaller guys. So like, is that the path for him defensively? Or, I mean, is there he moves fairly fluidly. It's just so slow. So like, is there any upside there at all?
I don't, to me, the upside is he learns to use his hands better. Yeah, that's one thing I will say, that he didn't use his hands well, like play in passing lanes, use his length, all of that. That's one thing I've learned to really watch with big men prospects or even big guys in the NBA. Hand activity can save so much in ball screen coverages, all of that, like just getting your hands in the right passing windows, understanding where the offensive player wants to go with the ball. So his sheer size could be impactful, like a team that's willing to play a little more zone, right? Like if you're the Miami Heat and you're willing to play zone when he's on the floor, like that's interesting to me, especially if he learns to use his hands better. And then the real upside is offensively. Like, does he shoot it well enough, even from 15 to 18 feet, even if it's just a mid-range jumper? And then like hub of your offense type of passing, in my opinion, where like he just stands there and he just whips passes around. Now, this archetype is scary because when you start talking like, oh, maybe he's Nikola Jokic or he's Alperen Şengün, it's like, okay, now I'm terrified because there's not very many of those guys. It's like whenever someone's like, no, he'll be Draymond Green. There's not very many Draymond Green archetypes in the NBA, and that's because it's a very special niche archetype that all of these very specific things have to hit. What's really high level with those two guys, Jokic and Draymond Green? They are two of the best processors our game has ever seen on both ends of the floor. Jokic is a little bit lazy defensively at times, but when he is successful, it's because he's processing, he gets his hands in passing windows and stuff like that. So that makes me a little bit nervous when you're talking about like, hey, he has to play like Jokic offensively. Well, does he process the game that high level? You know, like, can he do those type of things? And so that would be I think he's a second unit guy at best. I don't see like a starter level potential for Hansen Yang.
Yeah, and it's like I know Jokic was a second round pick,
Yes.
but like I feel like people the Nuggets figured things out pretty quickly into like the type of talent he had. Like, is a player like Yang gonna have those opportunities if he's not like incredibly showing off like the way Nikola Jokic did in practice and preseason and everything his early years? Like, I just think those comps, like you're saying, are kind of funny because it's like they're just not gonna have the opportunity to turn, like, that's not what we're asking them to do. It's not a fault of these players. It's just like, are they going to have the minutes anywhere? You're just asking them to be a rotational player, which I think is a win at 37 if that's what you can get.
The other thing about Jokic is they also took Yusuf Nurkic in that draft. And it's like,
yeah.
So are we sure the Nuggets even had a clue what Jokic was? Listen, I wasn't scouting back then. I have no idea. like, if you really thought he was this good, would you even play the board correctly? I think I'd be too terrified to play the board. Like, even if you knew every other team hated him, don't you at least like go get him at 30 so you have a little bit more team control on him or something? So, it's just like, no, I don't know. I didn't scout Jokic. Maybe it was obvious there or something like that, but obviously it wasn't because even the Nuggets took a different center than him in the first round.
Last question on this, because I think what tends to get lost with like Jokic or Sengun comparisons is those guys aren't those guys if they also can't shoot the ball a little bit. Like if you're defending that really great passer and you can just do the Ben Simmons defense and stand 2 feet in the paint, it really doesn't matter all that much. So you mentioned Yang maybe has a little bit of a shooting potential. What's the story there? Is that something that maybe he can scale up? Has he only flashed it? Or is it just kind of a pie in the sky hope?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great point with Şengün this year where he struggled to score in the paint at times this year, and it really hurt his offense, his all-around impact on that end. And I will say, like, Şengün got much better defensively this year, and, like, that's where he would be better than Hansen Yang as well. I think it looks interesting, Wes. Like, I'm interested by it. Like, I don't necessarily say I want to – like, the free throw percentage, again, I know that's for a lot of people, especially for young players, is under 70%. The actual like synergy numbers weren't overwhelmingly positive. I don't think this is something he's going to come in and do right away. I think more so it's like he had some post moves and touch, and like, maybe he is a short roll floater finisher, right? Like nobody's Isaiah Hartenstein in my opinion with that, but like Ivica Zubac is pretty good with short roll floater decisions and scoring. Maybe if he can even do that at that level, right? Where he just like, I don't know that I buy the mid-range jumper super early in his career, but I would buy that there's potential long-term.
All right, last one. And I mean, I said it before. I can't imagine that this guy's going to be there anywhere near 37. So this is surely a trade-up candidate. I mean, you can tell me if I'm wrong. Noah Penda. So strong, powerful, kind of combo forward. Another international guy. A lot of international guys on this list so far. I think we're 3 out of 5. So what's the scout on Penda?
Yeah, just a big, strong, physical. I call him a forward. I call him a rotational forward. He's honestly probably strong enough that if you wanted to moonlight at the like super small ball 5 stuff, maybe you could do that. But I think he's an advantage exploiter. And so when I say advantage exploiter, it's a guy that can knock down, catch and shoot, a guy that can attack a closeout to score his own, a guy that can attack a closeout and make the pass or make the one more pass. Now, there are some question marks with all of that. The 3-point percentage is at 32%. So, like, you take that out of the advantage exploiter equation, and that's a little bit concerning. I do think he can pass. I think he can cut. I think he can attack a closeout for sure. I'm a little bit nervous whether he finishes at the rim when he attacks closeouts because he's not a vertical pop guy. But I do think that he has that potential, advantage exploiter potential. I think he's a really good cutter and off the ball mover, like really, really good. And he's a really good ball mover. Like he's going to make the one more pass and all of those decisions. I don't even know that the assists to turnover ratio does it, but this is a guy that's forward that averages almost 3 assists. I think the defense is good. I don't think it's as good as most other people do. Like I know, Sam thinks the defense is awesome. I disagree with that a little bit. I think it's fine. I think he's solid. He does have good defensive disruption numbers, over 2 stocks per game in 27 minutes, but I don't think it's as high level as some other. I think it's fine. I think it's good. I think this is a rotational forward. I think he can come in and he can be part of your rotation, specifically playing at the 4.
Yeah, what do you think with Penda? Because so like 2 of the guys that we talked, Penda and Saraf, like if you would have told me that Penda was for sure gonna be like a first round pick and like Saraf is kind of on the border, I would have been pretty surprised. And different types of players. So, and when I watch Penda, like I see the strength as like the big thing, and he's over 20, so he's not like a 19-year-old guy, but he's still a younger prospect. And like a lot of times, especially with these international players, you need some time for them to like add to their frame and just work on their strength their first couple of seasons. So I guess what did you see from Penda coming into the end of his season, and I guess just throughout his pre-draft process that might have him in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, I do think he's probably a first-round pick. I think what you said there, like just the build, the size is what stands out when you turn on the film. Like it truly is impressive. And so I think for a lot of people, the defense is going to be the other aspect of it. Because whenever he's locked in, you can see the potential, multiple efforts on the ball, versatility with matchups, hand activity in terms of digging, and again, the defensive playmaking numbers. So like that stuff is all really, really intriguing with Pinda. And then the other thing I'll say is like, you just look at his shooting throughout his career and it has improved. So a few years ago on very low volume, 28 attempts, he shot 21% from three. He shot 39% from the free throw line as a 17-year-old, right? Now the next year, he shoots 27% on over 100 attempts from three and 67% from the free throw line. And then this year, he jumps that three-point percentage up to 32%, free throw percentage held the same. So it's like it maybe some real growth with that three-point shooting with the guy, as you mentioned, just turned 20 in January.
So this is not a direct like player comparison. That's not where I'm trying to go with this, but something that really stood out to me, I thought with Penda and what made him so fun to watch was, it's not just the fact that he's big and that he plays really hard and, hustles like, he's got his hair on fire in that way. Like you could say similar to a guy I talked about quite a bit last year with like Pindown Salon, right? Another guy just plays hustle the whole time. And he's also bigger, more physical of an athlete, but Penda has this element of like control with his movements. He's never seems to be out of control or like off balance. He's just a fantastic core, good mover in that way. So when you add all of this up together, right, you got a guy who's got a decent jump shot, improving jump shot, but not all the way there yet. He could take a couple of DHOs. I know they did that a few times. His handle's not bad. It's okay at the moment. And he's a very physical offensive and defensive player. So like day one, when he's coming into the rotation, where does he kind of excel? How do you use this guy if he's not going to be like a total lockdown point of attack defender and he's not a guy where you're going to space him, but also not a guy he's going to dribble and initiate a bunch? Like, where does he excel?
Yeah, I mean, I think he like playing that natural four position. Like that's why I'm actually interested in Pinda. I think I'm always looking for these type of players, like a true four man. He's not Tobias Harris. Like it's not the same type of player, but that was what it was intriguing to me with Tobias Harris is like this true forward, what I would call forward, like can hold up against some of these matchups, especially when teams play big. And we saw it be super beneficial throughout the season, right? Whenever they had Tobias and when they didn't, and some of the defensive matchups he had to take, that sheer physical size for Pinda is going to allow him to take matchups that other people won't. And I'm not talking about fives. I'm talking about guarding even somebody like Julius Randle, right? Like for all of the stuff that the stuff Julius gets, OG Anunoby even, right? Like you can't just put anybody on OG Anunoby because he's just more physical than you are. Pascal Siakam, same thing, right? And I'm not saying like these are all starter level players. I'm not saying that's what Pinda's going to do, but that's what he provides you on the defensive end is those type of matchups, being able to take those. While on the offensive end, and this is where I think he's different than Salone, is like a little more skill, right? Like I buy the jumper and I buy the ability to attack off the bounce. And like Salone was just like, I'm going to get out in transition and I'm going to attack offensive rebounds like crazy and all of those things. I think Pinda is more like well-rounded, solid. Like I understand why Salone was a higher prospect. My comp for him this year is more Noah Essengay. I think those are the guys that are kind of similar, and I think Essengay may end up having the same thing. Like I think I saw the other day, I wouldn't be shocked. I don't have him here, but like I wonder if Essengay ends up top 10 and will be the surprise where he's higher than what I have him on my board. But I think that's what Pinda is, like off the bench, second unit, four-man type of player that takes matchups that maybe not every player on your roster can.
Yeah, I think those players are oh no, sorry Wes. I was just going to say those guys are like important too. Like especially like we're seeing what like a totally different player, but what like Andrew Nemhard and guys like that you can just play on maybe not Nemhard sometimes takes like SGA, so it's not a great example, but that you can put on some of those other like rotational players in big situations, and it's important. So I don't think like every player needs to lock down the top scoring option on the other team. So if like that's an area that Penda can help out with, I think that's great too, and maybe his shot continues to improve, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the second unit, especially if it stays with Ron Holland, which I got to keep remembering like how big Ron Holland is. Like people keep bringing this up in terms of his size, and once he fills out his body, it'll look. I'm fascinated to see him at Summer League just to see if it's like he's the ultimate. Oh my gosh, did you see him? Look how much weight he put on. Remember when we did that with K? I mean, it's real. Like it's truly impactful. It matters. I just wonder if that's Ron Holland this offseason, but especially till he gets there. Pinda's a guy that, if he was drafted by the Pistons, falls into that 4-man in the second unit, and he can take those matchups, right? And that helps Ron Holland go guard more straight perimeter-oriented players. And so I do think that it's not a build and an archetype they have, especially if Tobias Harris isn't here long-term. Like it's different than Bobby Klintman. It's a completely different body type, even though they would be competing for the same minutes in theory.
All right, last question that I think we'll close it out and let you get back to your evening. But we talked about 5 guys. All right, we talked about Kalkbrenner, Yang, Saraf, Reynaud, and now just Penda. Of those 5, right? I know Maxime's your guy, but of those 5, who's maybe the highest upside and who's probably the safest bet? Let's just say by some miracle they're all sitting there at 37. You didn't have to go up and get anybody here.
Okay, so I won't say Maxime because like we've just done that. Okay, so the other 4 would be Pinda, Saraf, Kalkbrenner, and Hansen Yang.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, I'll go Saraf. Like if Saraf knocks down shots, I don't play any defense, DB. If Saraf is what I've seen at times, that's big time. Like that, he could be I'm telling you guys, like the creativity and the wiggle and the ability to create separation and the decel and all of that stuff. He's just a guy I can't quit. I may end up being completely wrong on this kid, but there's a chance that this is like a high level off the bench combo guard. And even if he's just neutral defensively, like we're seeing what Benedict Mathurin is doing right now, right? In terms of a similar role. They wouldn't do it in the same ways necessarily, but a similar role. So I'll say Saraf there. Safest, I'll give Kalkbrenner that. Like, I just think the defense is good enough that like, hey, he's at least that. And then he runs hard as heck in transition. Like that's where he'd play in well with the Pistons, right? Like rim run in transition, catch that. I would be interested to see how good he is like in pick and roll, lob threat stuff, grab offensive rebounds, play 10 minutes as a third big. Like I probably believe that he's at least going to be able to do that. So I'll go upside Saraf and solid Kalkbrenner.
Yeah, I was going to say the same answer for Saraf, and I felt like I might have been a little bit biased just because I tuned into a random game and was like, who is this guy? And kind of just like followed his journey after that. So like, but if any of our listeners haven't watched him play yet, like put on some film and you'll see what Bryce is talking about. And I think even if they end up with any of these bigs that we talked about, like I would be pretty happy because that means they're adding a 7-footer. And yes, you have like Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart, and Paul Reed, who are all good at their own things. But I just feel like it would be nice to have some additional size like on the team, even if it is that third big off the bench. And some of those players that we've talked about have their concerns defensively. So it's not like you're drafting someone and your rim protection questions are answered immediately. I just think it's a nice like off-speed pitch to throw. Like if I had to pick one of those guys, I'd pick Reynaud, but maybe the safest bet is Kalkbrenner. Like you said, I think they'd all bring just like a positive impact in what they're asked to do.
You guys alluded to this earlier. The NIL space has changed this draft, specifically here in 2025, with the depth of it, the number of players that went back because they can just, there's more guaranteed money for them, quite frankly. I will say that I think Detroit has at 37 is still in the range of players that are interesting to me. I have a tier break at 33, but the names immediately after that are still interesting to me. The Janai Broom, Alex Tui, Yannick Conan Niederhauser, Hansen Yang. Even if you get to like Kobe Brea and Chaz Lanier, I think at 37, one of these bigs is going to be there, or maybe one of these floor spacing wings that ends up being like a Tim Hardaway Jr.-ish type role. I'm not saying next year, but eventually, or another wing or something like that. I really came away really impressed with Alex Tui. Jake LaRavia is a free agent that I'm really interested in for the Pistons if they operate under the cap. Alex Tui reminded me a lot of Jake LaRavia. If they don't go that way in free agency, will then draft maybe a potential type of player like that at 37. So I think they just barely made the cut at 37, where it's like, hey, there's still going to be some interesting names that I'll get excited about. If they were at 47 guys, to be quite frankly, I'd be like, I don't know. Like there truly is a drop off. Depends on who you ask, but 35, 40, somewhere in that range. So at 37, I'm still excited, and it puts them in range to trade up if Trajan falls in love with somebody.
All right, guys, I think we got to wrap it up. But Bryce, thank you. Love having you on. Realized we haven't had you on in a while. I think it may have been like a full year going draft to draft. So that's on, I should say it's on us, but that's on me. So I got to fix that. We got to get you back on more. But again, I know we opened the show with it. Tell everyone again where they can find your stuff. And thank you again. We really appreciate it. Love having you on.
Of course, guys. Anytime. Motor City Hoops on Twitter, on Blue Sky. Go check out the Substack. Again, it's absolutely free. Will always be free. I think I have figured by the end of next week, I'll have 11 2025 draft prospect video breakdowns. Most of the guys we talked about today. By the end of next week, there will be 5 potential offseason acquisitions, including Jake LaRavia, Naz Reid, and Sam Merrill already out. The Pistons Pulse Podcast, where Wes is the star of the show and holds it down and keeps us together over there. And then the Game Theory Podcast, which if you're watching this live, Sam and I will be live tonight after Game 4 talking about the results of that. And go check out the Detroit Pistons offseason preview. That was a lot of fun. And we've gotten good feedback on those, so maybe even check out some other teams if you're interested in what they'll do this offseason.
Pacers going up 3-1. What do we think?
I hope I picked the Thunder in 5, so I'm already wrong, so I don't care. I just want 7 now.
Me too. I hope the series gets evened up, but it's like I feel like no matter what happens in Game 4 tonight, it's like a fun outcome because either the Pacers like get on the verge of a championship at home or the series is evened up and we're going back to OKC for more basketball. So I'm looking forward to that. Bryce, we absolutely have to let you go and get a break before you have to watch Game 4 and then record again. So shout out to you again for joining. We really appreciate it. We haven't dove in super deep to the draft, so this was incredibly helpful. And we're gonna have one more show most likely before draft night, and then draft day and breaking it all down. So everyone, thank you for tuning in live with us, or if you're listening audio, we appreciate you. Reminder to call our phone line to hear your voice on the show. Ask any question, draft, off season, preview of next season, whatever you got. The phone number for that is 313-355-2717. And special thanks to Sean Corp, the managing editor of Detroit Bad Boys, for supporting the show. Shout out to you guys again for all the great questions and talking points tonight. We'll catch you next week, whether on your commute or live with us on YouTube. We can't wait to talk more Detroit basketball with you all.